Hello everyone, I am C. Ashish Sarna on behalf of GM Test Series, and today we are going to discuss the mistakes students commit in income tax. Let's start with the test series. Mr. Nitish, born and brought up in Sikkim, had a net profit of rupees 2 lakh from business located in Sikkim and interest of rupees 55,000 on securities bonds issued by government of Rajasthan. Discuss taxability of the same. Whenever the word Sikkim comes, if the business is being carried in Sikkim, then the Sikkimese person, his total income is exempt under Section 1026 AAA, which says that his any income from any source of income or interest or dividend earned by him, that will be exempt. So the answer is A. Mr. Majid entered into agreement for sale of house property on 30/3/2014 and received advance of 76,000 on 3/3/2014, but the sale could not materialize as on 30/31/3/2014. Manjeet forfeited the advance money of 76,000. How will the same will be taxable in the hands of Mr. Manjeet? Here, the date 31/3/2014, 30/3/2014 is very important because amendment has been brought on 1/4/2015 that this amount will be taxable under section 56 to 9. But now, as per that time period for which the question pertains, the answer would be reduced from cost of acquisition when the actual is actually transferred. So the answer is D. But if in the present scenario, answer would have been A, taxability under income from other source. But currently, as the question pertains to year 2014, the answer is D. This is a very simple question. Mrs. Shifa Narang gave a loan of rupees 5 lakh at rate 12% to Sumit Narang, who is supposed to repay after 5 years. Mrs. Sumit Narang invested this amount in his business. Capital of his income was on this date was 3 lakh. He earned a profit of 2 lakh 80 lakh. 2 lakh 80,000 will be taxed in the hands of as simple as Mr. Sumit Narang. The person who is earning the business income, the business income will be taxable in his hands only and not in other's hand, even if he has taken a loan from other one from someone else. He might be paying interest, but interest will be allowed as deduction to him, and interest income will be taxable in the hands of Shifanar. But in the present case, the business income is taxable in the hands of Sumit Narang. Again, a very logical question. Element Limited amalgamated with UXI Limited in financial year 1915-16, and accordingly loss of rupees 5 lakh and an unabsorbed depreciation 2 lakh 50,000 of element was taken over by so and so. In financial year 1914, one of the conditions of amalgamation was violated by UXL Limited, and the loss remaining to set off was 3 lakh and unabsorbed depreciation was 2 lakh 50,000. So, if any conditions is violated and the amalgamated company and the new company has taken benefit of unabsorbed depreciation or any losses, that amount will be taxable as PTPP, and the balance amount for which he could have taken benefit in the subsequent years, that will lapse. So the answer will be point B. Loss and unabsorbed depreciation both so and so amount both will lapse, and rupees 2 lakh will be earlier set off will now be taxable as PGBP income. Next question. Mr. Rakesh Bansal borrowed money from his sister and the same money is lent to his friend Mukesh. Mr. Rakesh Bansal received interest of rupees 50,000 and paid rupees 65,000 to his sister. 35,000 was considered unreasonable by the assessing officer. How much income in hands of Rakesh Bansal under income from other source? Rupees 35,000 is considered unreasonable from 65,000. 65,000 minus 35,000 is 30,000. Rakesh Bansal received interest of 50,000 and the reasonable amount as per AO is 30,000. So 50,000 minus 30,000 will be 20,000. Answer is D. Maggie Limited has brought forward loss and unabsorbed depreciation of rupees 60,000 and rupees 1,20,000 respectively as per books of accounts and as per Income Tax Act. Brought forward losses of 50,000 rupees 50,000 and another depreciation is 76,000. Maggie Limited is in the process of insolvency and application for insolvency was admitted while calculating book profit for the purpose of MAT. How much loss will be allowed to be reduced from book profit? For the purpose of book profit, for the purpose of MAT, for while calculating book profit, we will reduce as per books the business loss and unabsorbed depreciation as per books, because this is especially for the purpose of, because the company is in the process of insolvency and application for insolvency has been admitted. So the amount that has to be reduced is 60,000 plus 1,20,000 is 1,80,000. Yeah. Next question. Takshak Charitable Trust earned an income of rupees 25 lakh, but in the previous year 1920 it actually received only this much amount and applied in full. Remaining amount 9,32,000 was received in the next year, in the 27th 3 2000 2021. This amount will be deemed to be applied in previous year 1920 when it was actually applied up to. There's a special provision in this because it says that if the amount has not been received in the current year, and especially for that, it shall be deemed to be applied in that particular previous year when, if that particular amount is received in any year, it has to be applied in that particular year or the next year following the year in which the amount is received. So in our case, the amount was received on 27 3 2021. So this amount should be applied in that year or in the next subsequent year. So year ending 2021 or year ending 2022. So the answer will be previous year 21-22. So if the amount is applied till previous year 21-22, it shall be deemed that amount has been applied in the previous year 1920 because it was not received in that particular year. Mr. Bhatti, shareholder who holds 12% in Raja Limited, Private Limited, which is not listed on stock exchange, received consideration of rupees 50,000 for buyback of shares by Raja Limited, which he acquired from by Mr. Bhatti on 26/7/2012 for rupees 30,000. Treatment of rupees 50,000 in the hands of Mr. Bhatti will be, in case of buyback of shares, it is governed by section 10 to 34A, in which it is specifically exempt. So the answer is C. So it's a completely theoretical question. If you see the language of the section, you will clearly come to know that this question falls under the preview of section 1034A and it is exempt under section. It's a theoretical question. The answer is B. Trustee of the trust and shall be liable to pay on accredited income to the credit of central within 14 days. Khushi Private Limited is a qualifying company engaged in the business in the shipping business and has a qualifying shape. It has availed option of calculating income as per tonnage scheme. It has Ship has 99,000 tonnage capacity and incur expense of rupees 2,000. Calculate tonnage income. If you are opting a tonnage scheme, then it's a deeming section, and the income will be as per as stated in the language as stated in this section. Then no deduction shall be allowed in that. So expense of rupees 2,000 will be ignored. And for calculating the income, first of all, it is governed by section 115 VG for up to 1,000 tonnage capacity. Income is rupees 70 per tonnage per 100 tonnage. So for 1,000, the income will be 700 rupees. For the next, from 1,001 to 10,000, for every 100 tonnage, income is 53 rupees. So in this case, 9,000 is tonnage capacity. For the 1,000, it will be 700 rupees. 700 into 70 rupees per 100 tonnage. There is 10 tonnage in that, 700 rupees separate. From 9,000, reduce 1,000 tonnage, 8,000 left. 8,000. Now the income will be 53 rupees per 100 tonnage. In 8,000, there are 80 hundreds, 80 into 53. That will be 4240, and 700 plus 4240 will be 4940. So the answer will be B, 4940. Next question. Examine with reasons based on the provision of the Act as to chargeability of the following receipts of to tax for the assessment year 2020-21. Rent of rupees 60,000 charged from tenants occupying house constructed on the land situated in India and used for agriculture purpose. The tenants working in the nearby industrial area occupying these houses for their own residential purpose. This the land is being utilized for agriculture purpose, but the workers are not. But he's charging rent from the workers, from the tenants living there who was working in the industrial area. So this is not an agriculture income. So this will be taxable. Income of rupees 75,000 by Anand Nursery from the sale of seedlings grown without carrying all the basic operations on land. A specific provision has been provided that the sale of seedlings without any, even if no basic operations are carrying on the land, this income will be exempt. Mr. Gaitonde, born and brought up in Sikkim, has net profit of so and so amount from the business located in Sikkim and trust of this on securities bond issued by the government of Rajasthan. As earlier stated, as per section 1026 AAA, any income of the persons living in born and brought up in Sikkim, working in Sikkim, has any business has income from any source of any, or has income of interest from securities or dividend income, that all will be tax free. So the solutions will be, yeah. First answer, as for section 10A, agriculture income exempt from tax. No, we all know that the meaning and scope of agricultural income is defined in section 2(1)(a). According to explanation 2 to section 2(1)(a), any income derived from the building from use of such building for any purpose, including lending for residential purpose or purpose for any business or profession other than agriculture, shall not be agriculture income. Therefore, the rent of 60,000 from letting out of house constructed on agricultural land for residential purpose of an industrial worker shall not be treated as agricultural income by virtue of expansion 2 to section 2(1)(a). So this is not agricultural income, this will be taxable. Next, expansion 3 to section 2(1)(a) provides the income derived from saplings or seedling grown in a nursery shall deemed to be agricultural income, whether or not basic operations are carried on. Accordingly, this will be exempt from tax. Again, then section 1026 AAA exempt the income who accrues or arise to a Sikkimese individual from any source in state of Sikkim and income by way of dividend or interest on securities. So his income will be exempt from tax. From the following particular, compute the gross total income of Mr. X for the assessment year 2020-21. Mr. X transferred his residential house to Mr. Z for rupees 10 lakh on 1/4/2019. The value of the said house as per stamp value authority was rupees 18 lakh. Mr. X, a childhood friend of Mr. Y. So, as per section 56(2), we have to take the stamp value. If the value is not taken, then the difference will be income from other source. So 8 lakh will be the income from other source. Yeah. Receipt of immovable property for an inadequate consideration as per provision of section 56 to 10, the difference between stamp duty value and the actual consideration would be taxable as income from other source. 8 lakh. Mr. Z received a car from his cousin on payment of rupees 2,50,000. Fair market value is 4 lakh. He had received a car as per section 56 to 10. Car is not included in that definition. It's only building, land, etc. But the car is not included, so no amount will be taxable for inadequate consideration. Land of Mr. Z was acquired by railways in 2011. On 15/12/2019, he received 1,70,000 as interest on enhanced compensation on the order of the court. If any enhanced interest on enhanced compensation is given by the government, then that income is taxable in the year in which it is received, and a 50% deduction shall be given of the total interest received in that particular year. So 1,70,000 less 50% deduction as well 56, 57 for taxable interest will be 85,000. On a fixed deposit of rupees 10 lakh in the bank, Mr. Z received interest of rupees this. So this is taxable, but the conditions is he has also borrowed rupees 50 lakh from the same bank on security of fixed deposit, and he is liable to pay 50,000 by way of interest. He therefore offered the difference between two amounts, that is 40,000. This is incorrect. Only the interest income, total interest income will be taxable. If we presume that if that this loan has been taken for the purpose of business, then this 50,000 will be allowed for deduction in the PGBP income and not in the other source income. So interest of total 90,000 will be taxable in the head under the head income from other source. Explain the tax implications of the following. X transferred agriculture land permanently to G with the condition that 25% of the income from the land should be handed over to him. G earned an income of rupees 4 lakh from the transferred property. This is revocable agreement because there is a condition attached with it. If the condition is not fulfilled, the land will be transferred to him. As per section, a transfer as per section 63 shall be deemed to be revocable if the conditions, any provisions for the retransfer directly or indirectly of whole or any part of the income assets to the transferor. So if it's a revocable, income will be in the hands of the transferor only. As per section 61, when there is revocable transfer of an asset by a person to another person, by any income derived from such as shall be included in the total income of the transferor. Hence, the total income of 4 lakh will be included in the hands of F. However, but we have to see by the facts of the case, this is agriculture income that will be exempt. Mr. X, Mrs. X hold 4,000 out of 10,000 equity shares of G Limited, a company in which Mr. X, that is husband, holding a BA degree is working. A BA degree working as a finance manager on salary of 30,000 per month. Very typical facts because wife holds 4,000 shares, that is 20%, 40% shares. 40% shares she holds, and husband is just a BA degree and working as a finance manager on a salary of 30,000. So the provisions of clubbing will apply. If the husband was working if he was holding some professional degree, then there would not be any clubbing. But in this, if he's holding just a degree, simple degree, and wife has a substantial interest in the company, so the club provisions of clubbing will apply for sure. Mr. X is holding substantial interest in the company as he needs hold equity shares more than 20% of the voting power. Mr. X is drawing a salary of 30,000 per month in this company under section 64(1)(2). In computing the total income of an individual, there shall be included such income as arises directly or indirectly to spouse of the individual by of salary from the company. So this is a kind of salary indirectly or indirectly paid to Mrs. X. However, above rule will not apply income arising to the spouse by virtue of his or her professional or technical qualification, which is not present in the current case, and the income is solely attributable to the application of such qualification. As Mr. X does not possess any professional or technical qualification, the salary of 30,000 per month is accessible in the hands of Mr. X. Mr. X transferred sum of rupees 20 lakh to his wife in 2007, and Mrs. X constructed a property out of this amount. Okay, she has been using this amount as for his own residence. The transfer deed stipulates that in the case of Mr. X and his wife agreeing to live apart, the property will belong to her absolutely. They are still living together. It's just that it is written in the transfer deed. That's it. So, so the provisions of clubbing will also apply in the present case, and it shall become part of the income of the husband. The question is based on section 64(1), which provides in computing the total income of individual. All such income is rising directly or indirectly to the spouse or individual from assets transferred directly or indirectly to the spouse of such individual. Otherwise than for adequate consultation or in connection with an agreement to live apart shall be included. And also the in this case the property is not transferred, it is only the cash what is transferred. Hence, although Mr. X will be treated as the owner of the house property, the income from house property will be included in the income of Mr. X only, because he has transferred the property. The provisions of transfer deed stating that is of no consequence. So the provision of clubbing will apply, though the property is in the name of Mr. X, but it will be included in the income of Mr. X. Mama Private Limited has share capital in the form of equity shares. The share was held till 31st March 2018 by four members C, D, E, F. Equally, the company made losses, profit for the past three assessment years. These are the details. Business losses and number of depreciation of the earlier years. The above figures have been accepted by the department during the previous year 2019. C sold shares to A, and during the previous year 2020, D sold shares to B. The profit for the past two previous years are as follows: 31,319, 8 lakh before charging depreciation of 1 lakh, 31,320, 15 lakh before charging depreciation of 1.5 lakh. In this question, there is a change in shareholding pattern, and we have unabsorbed depreciation and unabsorbed and carry forward of losses. So we have to take care of the provision of section 79, which says that business losses can be carried forward only when the shareholding pattern is more than 51% of of that particular year for which the business losses are taken in the current year and are set off in the current year. So this is the first condition, and first and second condition is that we have to see the priority wise which we can set off. First of all, we can set off depreciation of the current year, then business losses of the previous years, and the least priority should be given to the unabsorbed depreciation. Yeah. In this, shareholding in 2019 came from 25% of C to A and 25% of D to B. In the year 2020, the priority is current year depreciation brought for business loss, brought forward depreciation. Therefore, in the previous year to 31/3/2019, the brought forward losses for the previous year 2018 shall be set off. As evident from the data, shareholding has at least 81% of the voting power on March 31. So there is at least 51% of the voting power on March 2018 and March 2019 are same. Consequently, restriction imposed by 79 is not applicable for this year. So the income will be business profit less current year depreciation, less business losses of the last year, and then depreciation. So the income will be nil. Balance earned or depreciation relating to the assessment year can be carried forward, but in the year 2020, there has been change in shareholding pattern. There's now the 51%, at least 51 of the percent of the voting power on March 2018 and 2020 is not same. But balance earned or depreciation relating to the earlier years can be carried forward to the assessment year 2021 for set off against income of that years. There is no brought forward business loss, and the restrictions contained in section 79 is not applicable to carry forward of unabsorbed depreciation. As I said earlier, section 32 governs the carry forward and setup of depreciation for which shareholding pattern is not relevant at all. So a simple calculation has to be done. So first of all, current year depreciation, then last year depreciations can be set off. So which is 12 lakh. So total income will be 1.5 lakh. Question number 5. Hyper Limited engaged in diversified activities, earned a net profit of rupees 14 lakh 25,000 after debit credits of following items to the statement of profit and loss account ended 31/3/2020. Item debited to P&L. These are the items. Items credited to P&L. Additional information. Depreciation includes 1,50,000 on account of revaluation of fixed assets. Depreciation liable as per income tax rules. Brought forward business losses and above depreciation information is given. We have to calculate total income of the company for the assessment year 2021, giving the reason for treatment of items, and examine the applicability of section 115JB, compute book profit and tax credit to be carried forward. So basically, we have to calculate two things in this. That is, first of all, the tax as per normal provisions and tax as per book profit calculations as per section 115JB. So first of all, we calculate, there will be two types of calculation. First, for the as per normal provisions, profit is 14 lakh 25,000. Expenses on industrial, no. This will the exemption in the end. After net exemption will be given in the end. Provision for loss of subsidiary, yes, this will be added back because no provision for subsidiary is not allowed in Income Tax Act, and also for the purpose of calculating provision for the purpose of book profit calculation also. So this will be added back. Provision for sales tax demand paid before due date. This will be allowed because it has been paid before the due date. Penalty is not allowed as per Income Tax Act provisions of income tax. This will be added back. Provision for income tax demand. This will be also added back. STT on sale of equity shares. This will also be added back. But in case of calculation, in the calculation of book profit, this will not be added back because only the provision for income taxes will be added back. But for other taxes paid, credit will be given in book profit while calculating book profit. Depreciation, this will be added back and will be allowed as per the Income Tax Act, which is stated below. Depreciation, interest on deposit credited to buyers for advance received from them on the TDS deposit. This will be allowed in deduction because TDS has been deducted and there's no violation of any laws. So this will be allowed in income tax also, and as per normal provisions also, and as per book profit also. Items credited to statement of P&L. Income on industrial unit, there will do the netting. 2,70,000 minus 2,10,000, 60,000 will be allowed as exemption as per normal provisions in the end. Profit from this will also be, this is total exemption shall be taken in the end. Long-term capital gain, this for as per file calculating as per normal provision, this will be uh, reduced because it is credited to P&L, and this will be taxed separately in the under the head income from capital gains as long-term capital gain. And also benefit will be given because 1 lakh exemption is given on long-term capital gains as per 112A. Income from units of UTI, that is from the mutual fund, these are totally exempt. So let's go to the calculation. Profit as per normal provisions. Net profit as per a statement of P&L 14 lakh 25,000. Provision will be added back. Provision for sales tax will be allowed. It is actually paid. Penalty will not be allowed. It will be added back. Provision for income tax will be added back. STT on sale purchase of equity shares will be added back. Depreciation debited will be added back. Interest on deposits, it is allowed because it has been paid, and tax had been deducted on this. Less long-term capital gain because this will be taxable under head capital gains. 3,60,000 will be deducted. Income from UTI, it is exempt, totally exempt. Then we have to deduct current year depreciation. Then again the priority wise we have to go. First of all, current year depreciation, then brought forward losses, and then brought forward depreciation. We are going as per normal provisions. So depreciation will be 2,80,000 and brought forward losses will be 3 lakh, 4 lakh, 4 lakh 20,000. Current year depreciation 2,80,000, brought forward business loss 4,20,000, brought forward depreciation will be reduced, and PGBP income will be 2,90,000. Long term capital gain will be 3,60,000. And now the deduction will be allowed 60,000 for 2 lakh 10,000 to 2 lakh 70,000 minus 2 lakh 10,000 of the income minus expenditure from the business that is allowed an exemption under section deduction under section 80I, and deduction under 100% export oriented unit under section 10 double exemption will be allowed, that will be reduced from the income. So total taxable income will be 5 lakh 30,000. This will be like these two exemptions like 80IE and 10 double A exemption will be deducted from PGBP income. 2 lakh 90,000 minus 1 lakh 20,000. That will be 1 lakh 70,000 as per normal provisions as under the head PGBP. And in capital gains, that will be 3 lakh 60,000 will be taxable under the head long-term capital gain. The calculation is shown here. This tax at the rate 31% on 1 lakh 70,000 and long-term capital gain 10% plus surcharge and cess on 2 lakh 60,000. That was 3 lakh 60,000. Exemption for 1 lakh is given as per Income Tax Act for the long-term capital gains on shares. Yeah. And now we calculate tax as per book profit. Net profit provision, as I earlier said, provision for loss of subsidy will not be allowed. It will be added back. Sales tax is allowed in both. Penalty will not be added back because as per while calculating book profit, penalty is allowable expenditure. Provision of for income tax is not allowed as expenditure. SCT, other taxes apart from income tax is allowed as deduction under for calculating book of profits. Depreciation will be added back, and then the depreciation as per book profit as per books will be allowed to the assessee. Interest on deposits, no adjustment, same as normal provisions. Less long-term capital gain credited in P&L. While calculating book profit, income from capital gains also will be included in this also for the purpose of calculating book profit. But income from UTI, that is totally exempt, so that will be reduced because this is totally non-taxable and this will not become part of the profit for calculating book profit for calculation of MAT. Depreciation on revaluation. Now the depreciation, the total depreciation was claimed was 3,60,000 and depreciation includes on revaluation of fixed assets. And for calculating for book profit in this or depreciation on revaluation is not to be considered. So we are deducting that also. So depreciation will be 3,60,000 minus 1,50,000. So depreciation allowed will be 2,10,000. Then brought forward for this while calculating MAT for the purpose of calculating book profit, we have to take brought forward depreciation of business loss, whichever is less as per books of account taken on cumulative basis. Here, now we see 2,50,000 or 3 lakh. We will add 2,50,000 plus 3,50,000. Depreciation will be added. So this amount is less. So this amount will be deducted from the book profit calculated till now. That is from 16 lakh. 75,000, 6 lakh will be deducted on book profit. This tax rate of 15.6% is there. So tax is 1,67,700. So since tax payable under provision is more than normal tax liability, the company will have to pay income tax rupees this. The excess tax liability of this amount, this is 1,67,700 minus 80,080 rupees will be available as MAT credit under section 115 JAA. Yes. A public charitable trust registered under Section 12AA runs a hospital and also medical college. It furnishes the following information for the year ended 31st March 2020. Gross receipts from hospital, rupees 425 lakh. Income from business incidental to the main object, 2 lakh. Voluntary contributions from public, 32 lakhs. It includes corporate donations, 3 lakh. Anonymous donations, 5 lakh. Voluntary contributions are included in gross receipts are given in one above. Hospital operation expenses are incurred. These are not included in the gross receipts, 105 lakh. Income from medical college, 10 lakh. Gross receipts of college for the year, rupees 90 lakhs. Gross receipts given in one also includes a sum of 55 lakh, which has accrued, but not received. However, sum of 18 lakh were received only on 31st day of the March 2020. The trustee set apart rupees 80 lakh for acquiring a building to expand its hospital, but the amount paid in May 2020 when the sale deed was adjusted in its name. In June 2019, the trustee also installed new software for 28 lakh rate of depreciation 60%. Trust incurred 35 lakh towards purchase of laptops. It repaid rupees 15 lakh for taken earlier for construction of hospital building. We have to calculate the maximum benefit, total income of the trust, and the maximum benefit we can derive within the four corners of law. First of all, suggestion. Yeah. Gross receipts from hospital other than voluntary contributions, 425 minus 32, because there's going to be separate treatment for these amounts. Gross receipts 393 less hospital operational expenses. Obviously, these are revenue expenses. These are to be deducted. Balance is 288. Income from main incidental to the main object 3. This is amount 2 lakh. This will be the receipt of the hospital. Add voluntary contributions other than corpus donations. Corporate donations, these are exempt. And the total donation received was 32 less 3 is 29. But from this amount, we have to reduce anonymous donation taxable at the 30%. And there's a formula for calculating anonymous donation, which will become part of the revenue receipts, and which will be anonymous donation, which shall be taxable at the rate 30%. So there's a separate calculation for that. As per section 105, the anonymous donation in excess of high of the following will respect to tax at the rate 30%. 1 lakh or 1.6 lakh. It is 5% of the total donations of all the donations received, which is 32 lakhs. 32 lakhs into 5% is 1.6. So 1.6 will be included in the receipts, and the balance amount will be taxable as at the rate 30% because it is anonymous donation. So 29 lakhs included anonymous donation also, for which eligible amount is 1.6. Therefore, my 3.4 will be deducted. This amount will be taxable at the rate 60, at the higher rate, at the rate 30%. For this, from the balance amount, we have to deduct 15%, which is eligible as per law. That is 15% can be separated apart, and 85% has to be utilized to the fullest. So the amount is 268 lakhs less deemed application as per extension 2 to section this. So gross receipts given in one includes sum of 55 lakhs which has accrued but not received. So this amount shall be deemed to be utilized in the present year, but it has not been received. So, but it will be deemed to have been applied in the current year because it has been accrued in this year. So this amount has to be utilized in the year in which it is received, or in the following year, in which in the next year, in the subsequent year, in the year following the other year in which the donations are received. So the other is 18 lakhs were received only on 31st day of March 2020. So 18 lakhs were received on 31st March 2020. So this amount could not be utilized in that year. So it will be deemed to be applied in this year only, because we have subsequent year also in the year ending 31st March 2021, in which this amount will be utilized. If this amount is utilized in the year March 31st 2021, it will be deemed that this amount has been utilized in the current year only. Less amount applied for the purpose of hospital cost of new softwares 28. We are taking the advantage of the entire amount. We will not take any advantage of the depreciation amount. Cost of laptops also, that is utilized for the purpose of the hospital. Repayment of loan also, it is also allowed as deduction as per CIT versus Jan Bhumi Trust. Less amount set apart for acquisition of a new building. Friends, it has been stated that the trust set apart rupees 80 lakh for acquiring a building to expand its hospital. This amount we can take that has been utilized in the current year, but for this we have to file a separate application to the assessing officer that we will utilize this amount by this date. We have to give a reasonable cost, genuine cost for that, and if it is satisfied, the exemption will be allowed to us in the current year only. So we are presuming that we have given an application to the assessing officer and he has accepted that. So this amount will also be deducted from the total receipts. And the college income is rupees 10 lakh, but and the receipts are less than 1 CR, that is 90 lakhs only. So this will be covered on the exemption of section 1023C. So no amount will be taxable. So total income other than anonymous donation under this anonymous, add anonymous donations that was earlier subtracted above. This will be taxable at 30 rate, and 37.26 will be taxable at normal rates. In order to minimize or reduce the tax liability, trustees may give a notice in writing to the assessing officer in a precise manner about the intention to accumulate minimum of 34 lakh 0.76 lakhs, specifying the period and the purpose. That is, we have to file form 9A in which we will specify that this amount is being accumulated for the next particular time, that is for 5 years, and we will utilize this amount in the subsequent 5 years for the benefit of the society, and the amount accumulated till date will be set apart and will be kept in the mode specified under section 11.5. Question number 7. Abhimanyu, a resident individual, held 25% equity shares in FMC Limited, Indian company. The Indian company paid up share capital as on 31st March 2019 was rupees 10 lakh, divided into 1 lakh shares of rupees 10 each, issued at a premium of rupees 20 each. The shares were allotted to shareholder on 1st October 2012. The company has gone for buyback of 30% of shares on 30th September 2019 as per the provision of the Companies Act 2013. The company paid rupees 60 as per share on buyback. Explaining the tax effect, we have to find out. Shares were we have to find the tax effect in the hands of FMC Limited, and both in the hands of FMC Limited and Abhimanyu. And there are two options given to us: shares of FMC Limited listed on stock exchange, and shares of FMC Limited not listed on stock exchange. First of all, for the Abhimanyu, in case of buyback of shares for the shareholders, there's a provision under the section. There's a section called 1034A, in which in case of buyback of shares, it is a completely exempt for the shareholders. But for the so one part is clear, for Abhimanyu, it is exempt under section 1034A. And for FMC Limited, there's an amendment in section 115 QA which says that it shall be applicable in case of a merger. Capital gain shall be there for both listed shares and non-listed shares. So it is irrelevant if the shares are listed or not. We have to do a single calculation, and that will be applicable for both. listed shares and non-listed shares. So they have gone for buyback. The company paid rupees 60 rupees per share. 60 into how many shares are we buying back? 30% of 1 lakh. 30,000 into 60 rupees minus 30 rupees. The company issued 1 lakh shares at the rupees 10 each at a premium of 20. That is cost was 30 rupees. 30,000 into 60 rupees minus 30,000 into 30 rupees. That will be around calculation is simple. Therefore, distributed income is 30,000 shares into 60 rupees minus 30,000 shares into 30 rupees, 9 lakh. Company shall pay this much amount of tax on distributed income. So, Section 156 says that notwithstanding anything contained in the provisions of this act, in addition to the income tax chargeable in respect of the total income of the domestic company for any assessment year, any amount of distributed income by the company on buyback of shares from a shareholder shall be chargeable to tax, and the tax rate will be 20% plus 12% surcharge and 4% cess. So the effective rate will be 23.296%. So the company has purchased 30,000 shares, which was purchased back. They have buy back 30% of the shares, that is 30,000, and they are paying 30 rupees more because earlier the share were issued at 30 rupees, 10 rupees face value plus 20 rupees at premium. So, so the company is purchasing shares, and it's like the company they're paying 30 rupees more to the shareholders for buy back the shares. So the company shall pay rupees 23.296% on 9 lakh. And for the shareholders, it will be exempt. SSP, a domestic company having two undertakings engaged in manufacture of cement and steel, decided to hive off cement division to HRV Private Limited, a domestic Indian company, by way of demerger. The net book value of the assets of SSP Limited before demerger was 40 crore. The net book value of the assets transferred to RV Limited, the resulting company, is rupees 10 CR. Demerger was made on this date. So the demerged company, that is resultant company, is also an Indian company. In the scheme of demerger, it was fixed that for each equity share of rupees 10, there shall be issued 2 equity shares of rupees 10 of RV Private Limited. One Mr. NK held 25%, 25,000 shares in SSP Limited, which were acquired in the financial year 2002-3 for rupees 6 lakhs. Mr. NK received 50,000 equity shares from RV Private Limited consequent to demerger in Jan 2020. He sold all the shares of RV Limited for 8 lakh. In the background, requested to answer the following. Does the transaction attract an income tax liability in the hands of SS Limited or an RV Limited? No, because first of all, the resulting company is an Indian company, and we are presuming that they are satisfying all the conditions under Section 47. So it will not be regarded as a transfer. No, the transfer will not attract any income tax liability as per Section 47. 6B, any transfer in merger in demerger of a capital asset by the demerged company to the resulting company will not be regarded as transferred for levy of capital gain tax. Resulting company is an Indian company. Hence, the capital gain will not attract in the hands of SSP Limited, Private Limited. The demerged company in this case is an Indian company. Next point. State in brief the condition to be satisfied. There are a few conditions that it will be a going concern. All the assets will be transferred. The book value, the 3/4 of the total shareholder will be the shareholders of the resulting company also, and some other conditions, basic conditions. These are all theoretical part. They should the resulting company the shares of the demerged company on a proportionate basis. This is also except where the resulting company is itself a shareholder of demerged company. So these are all theoretical part. Compute the capital gain that would arise in the hands of NK on receipt of shares of. There won't be any tax liability because we are presuming the if NK shares, the shareholders will still remain 3/4 of the shareholders of the demerged company is the shareholder of the resulting company also. So we are presuming there's no change in the shareholding to the extent of 3/4. So no capital gain will reside in the hands of NK Limited, and also the transfer is not regarded as a transfer as per section 47. There would be no tax liability hand of NK on receipt of shares of RP Limited. As per section 47(6)(d), any issue of shares by resulting in the scheme of demerger to a shareholder will not be regarded as a transfer for the levy of capital gains if the issue is made in consideration of demerger of the undertaking. Computed capital gain would rise if NK sell the shares of RV Private Limited of the resulting company. So, if the shares are sold for 8 lakh, 8 lakh is the purchase consideration, and we have to find the proportionate amount. 6 lakh was the total amount he paid. 10 lakh 10 lakh was the book value of the shares of the resulting company, which he has transferred to the resulting company, and 40 lakh was the book value of the total assets of the demerged company before demerger. So the proportion amount will be 1.5 lakh. Indexation will be done because it's a long term. So the long term gain will be 3,87,000. Will the sale of shares by NK affect the tax benefits availed by SSP Limited? In this question, as earlier said, if it is a no, the sale of shares of by NK would not affect the tax liability because we are presuming that it shall not reduce the shareholding not less than 3/4 in the value of the demerged company becomes shareholder of the resulting company by virtue of the demerger. So it is a presumption that the condition is satisfied in this case also. Is NK eligible to avail any tax exemptions? Yes, he can. He can exemption under section 54F, 54EE, 54F, and 54EE in the startups mutual funds. Next question. An electoral trust approved by the central government of direct tax and liable to income tax in respect of voluntary contribution received and other income. There are two parts in this. For the other income, they shall be taxable, and for the voluntary contributions, there are specified conditions which we have to fulfill. If they are fulfilled, there won't be any capital gain or any other. There won't be any tax liability. The statement is partially correct. Section 13B provides us under any voluntary contribution received by electoral trust shall not be included in total income if such electoral trust distributes to political party. They're going to distribute the voluntary contributions to a registered party, which is registered under Section 29 of Representation of the People Act 1951, and 95% of the aggregate donation received by it during the year, along with the surplus, if any, brought forward from any previous year, has been distributed. And so, such electoral funds trust function, or obviously it has to satisfy the condition that it has to work according to the central government notified conditions. Therefore, if the above conditions are satisfied, then voluntary contribution received by the electoral trust shall not be included in the income of the electoral trust. However, any other income shall continue to be taxable in the hands of electoral trust. What is the effect of contribution made by an individual to electoral trust on his taxable income? He will be allowed as deduction under Section 80 GGC. If a person makes a donation to an electoral trust, then such donation shall be allowed a deduction in computing the total income of such person. Thank you.